I'm Chance Dorland, and this is In-Depth, an interview program from expressnews.com with in-depth reporting and other resources for stories affecting San Antonio and Bexar County. Following about a week of shocking revelations and continued searching, today the San Antonio Police Department announced they had found the body of 8-month-old King J. Davila. I'm joined now by San Antonio Express News criminal justice enterprise reporter Emilie Eaton and breaking news reporter Faris Sabawi to get some important updates on the case and to also discuss how events have unfolded from the initial report that a young infant was missing in San Antonio. So, Emilie, great to have you back here on the show. Faris, great to have you here for the first time. Let's just jump right into it. What are the unfortunate updates that police announced today?
Hi, Chance. Thanks for having us. So unfortunately, police announced today that they found the body of 8-month-old King J. Davila after his father told police where he had buried him in an open lot up on the northeast side. So after that discovery, they arrested and charged his father and his grandmother, his paternal grandmother, with various charges. So Christopher Davila now faces charges of child endangerment, possession of a felon with a firearm, possession of a controlled substance, and a couple other ones.
Yeah, that's right. I believe Angie Torres got Christopher Davila's cousin was charged as well with tampering with evidence. And Christopher Davila also faces some other unrelated charges like drug possession and I believe being a felon in possession of a firearm.
So we'll get more into how all this unfolded and how it's involved family members. Angie Torres is a cousin. But I want to know more about this breaking news today that the unfortunate news that they found this child's body. This was actually because the father, Christopher, I believe, led police to where the body was buried, correct?
Yeah, today Chief William McManus had said that after another round of questioning, it looks like Christopher Davila, told them that what actually happened was that the King J was in a car seat on the bed at Christopher Davila's home, and he was unsecured in that car seat, is what he told police. At some point, he told them that the car seat became unbalanced, that the baby fell face first, and suffered some pretty serious injuries. Davila knew that he should have called 911, he told police, but he ended up not doing that for whatever reason. And he said he checked on the baby a few hours later and found out it was dead. And from there, it turns out police believe he enlisted the help of his cousin, Angie Torres, and his mother, Beatrice Sampaio Davila, on what to do. And Davila apparently wrapped the baby in a blanket, stuffed the baby in a black backpack, and buried the backpack in this really just kind of a brushy area off a dead end near the northeast side, a pretty industrial part of San Antonio. And that revelation led to police charging Davila's mother and adding charges onto Davila as well.
This story has had so many twists and turns. It's one of those things you say stranger than fiction, and with this story, very unfortunately so. Let's jump back to when less was known about this case, would be a good way to say it. And at that time, it was a stolen car and a missing child. Emilie, when was this missing infant first reported?
The missing infant was first reported last Friday, so exactly a week ago, around 7 p.m. So Christopher Davila told investigators that he was picking up King J from his parents' home after the baby had stayed there for a few days. And on the way home to his home on the northeast side, he stopped by the Friends Food Mark off of Enrique Barrera Parkway. And while he was there, he went inside to buy water and lottery tickets. And he told police that when he came outside, the car was gone with his 8-month-old infant inside of it. So after that, that's when police started to pick apart his story and realized that there were a lot of inconsistencies in his story, and began to investigate it, and came upon the revelations that Ferris just talked about now.
And I believe it didn't take investigators that long. Wasn't it something like an hour before they really started doubting the story they were being told?
Yes, and there's a couple of reasons for that. When you watch the video surveillance, they say that the woman that's seen in the video is Angie Torres, Christopher Davala's cousin. And as she walks to the car, you can tell that she's not really hesitating at all. She doesn't look like your typical suspect who's looking over her shoulder or looking around to make sure she's not going to be caught. She walks without hesitation straight to the car, opens up the door, and gets inside and drives it away. And another thing that clued investigators into the fact that Davila might not be telling the truth, and this is a detail that we just learned today, was that before he went into the store to pick up the water and the lottery ticket, he actually double checked to make sure that his car was unlocked. Like he opened up the door, saw it was unlocked, and closed it again. So he made sure that someone would be able to come and steal it. And that clued investigators into the fact that he might be not telling the truth.
And to get more into, I believe police have used the term scheme, the setup that involved, getting someone recorded on video. The car was later, driven off. They found the car near a park. They searched the park to get all that set up. It was quite complicated. So the cousin, I believe, was dropped off by another family member away from the automobile so that she could go walk over and appear in the video as you just described. Tell me more about how that was set up.
So what we learned today is that the person who dropped off Angie Torres is actually Christopher Davala's mother, Beatrice Sampaio. So, according to police, after he went to her home with the infant, after it had allegedly fallen off of the bed and hit its head and died, he went to her house, and then he went to the store, and she took Angie to the store after and dropped her off so that Angie could allegedly steal the car. And that's how it unfolded from there.
Now, Emilie, you actually, before the big reveal in this case, this really unfortunate reveal that the family apparently was involved. Now, with the update from the police that the child's body has been found, you actually interviewed family members before this was known. And I guess at least some of what they told you turned out to be completely untrue.
Well, I guess only time will tell on that one, but it certainly looks very suspicious now. So on Tuesday evening, or maybe it was Wednesday evening, all the days are blurring together this week. I spoke to Beatrice Sampaio Davila and her husband Mario and Christopher's sister Amy, along with his uncle Lupe. So a lot of people there, but the main name that you'll recognize is Beatrice. She's the one who has now been charged in connection with this alleged cover up. And one thing that I noticed in talking to them was that they didn't talk a whole lot about King J. They talked a lot about a custody case involving 5 of their great grandchildren who are completely unrelated to all of this. Of course, what happens with this case will impact the custody case with their 5 others. So part of me was like, well, maybe they're just talking about their other 5 great grandchildren to sort of set this up for me so that I understand what's been going on in their family and their previous interactions with law enforcement and with child protective services, and sort of make it all clear to me. But at the same time, I was like, well, why aren't they talking about King J? They did a little bit, and I asked Beatrice if she thought that King J was still alive, and she said, I think so. So it was certainly a very interesting interview, and as more details come out about Christopher Davila and his family, I think I'll continue going back to that and trying to see if there's inconsistencies in their story or if maybe there are consistencies. Only time will tell.
When you were in that situation, what was that like for you? Did you want to ask them about, maybe in a way like, when I've spoken to other people who were in a somewhat similar situation where a family member was missing or someone had been kidnapped, they have acted this way. I'm noticing that I'm getting different responses from you, or did you think your role was to interview a family that, by all outward appearances, was dealing with a very traumatic incident involving a loved family member, and it wasn't maybe your place to ask them about what you now think was maybe somewhat odd for that situation?
That's a really great question because I really struggled with that, especially because, according to the family, Beatrice has cancer and has had cancer for several years. They say she's dying and that she's on hospice care right now. And so I felt really bad being invited into their home and in what is probably one of the worst weeks of their lives. And then saying, well, how do you know that's true? But my job as a reporter is to get to the truth, and I think that there is a way to get to the truth empathetically and kindly, or at least some of the time that's the case. So at one point, I did sort of press her a little bit when she was talking about the fact that she believed the baby was still alive and that she believed in her son Christopher. And I said, "Well, how do you know? How do you know Christopher is telling the truth?" And she said, "He's my son. To kill someone, I don't know. I don't know." So, it was a really fine line to walk because they were very gracious and kind in letting me into their home. But at the same time, my obligation is to find the truth, and what I, at the end of the day, want to know is what happened to King Jay. So that is sort of what guided me through the whole interaction.
I know that early on there were reports that family members, and also the mother of King Jay, were talking about what they thought perhaps was unfair treatment or biased treatment from the police regarding Christopher and this case. Emily and Ferris, either of you, could you talk about what was said? Obviously, that looks a little different now than it did before.
Yeah, I know Jasmine Gonzalez, King Jay's mother, had initially told the media a lot that she felt that, the police weren't doing enough to find King Jay. She had also, at least initially, defended Christopher Davila's actions as well in the case, and she didn't seem to think he was a suspect. We don't know how she's reacted to these developments. I believe since then she's deleted her Facebook, and coming into contact with her has been pretty difficult. But she was very vocal with the media here in San Antonio about thinking that San Antonio police haven't done enough, and like you said, maybe feeling like the police have somewhat of a bias against them. But it turned out in the end, at least with the facts the police have uncovered, we're not sure at this point if the mother, Jasmine Gonzalez, was aware or not aware of this cover up. At this point, she's not charged at all. But police were not willing to really comment on how they plan to make more arrests or add more charges. At this point, we just don't know.
That's a good point for my next question as we look forward into this continued investigation and more updates from the police in the coming days, and I'm guessing most likely coming weeks. Both of you, what do you think it needs to be paid attention to now? What is the information that reporters like yourselves are going to be paying attention to going forward? Obviously, some charges have been filed. Ferris, as you just mentioned, there are some people, family members involved in this who police have not completely cleared of wrongdoing in this situation. There's obviously a lot more details that are probably going to come out a little bit later on. So where do you think the attention needs to be put going forward in regards to this case?
I think for me, the thing that interests me most, and I think that a lot of readers have been interested in, is to see that if it does come to light that this is indeed a cover up. I think I'd be interested to see how many family members were caught up in it, and I think that's something that we just don't know yet. Even with Emily talking to the family, one of them being charged, it makes it hard to know who's telling the truth and who isn't. And I think that's something that we're going to keep an eye on going forward to see how or if any other family members participated in this alleged cover-up.
I agree. Those are definitely the questions that I'm looking at as well. One thing that also has popped into my mind, if Beatrice Sampaio, in fact, has played a role in this alleged cover-up, I want to know who the mastermind was. Was it Christopher Davila who came up with this idea for the alleged kidnapping, or was it someone else in the family like Beatrice who helped put it all together? I think it will be really interesting to see what their thinking was and how they came about this whole plan.
Now, Emily, as we just discussed, you spoke with some family members earlier on in the evolution of this story. Um, Obviously, things have changed quite a lot. But you were connected to this family. Have you? What's it been like for you? Have you attempted to reach out, or are you thinking that they might want to speak again, or maybe is this a turn that you maybe can't face the press quickly after a turn like this?
I don't know at this point. I have reached out to them a couple of times since then, and they've answered, but then when I actually ask very specific questions or ask if there's anything that they want to add to our stories on the developments, they have not responded. So they're still sort of talking to me, but I haven't really been able to break through to see if they want to say anything more. And that certainly is something that I'd really like to do in the coming weeks.
Well, Emily and Ferris, I appreciate you making time for me today for the podcast, but especially I know both of you have been rather busy with this update and likely might be so for some coming time with this story. I just want to once again thank both of you for speaking with me and then give a chance for final thoughts before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I think it's just been a really hectic 2019 here for San Antonio law enforcement. It seems like we've had a couple of officer-involved shootings to start off the year. We've had a couple of first responders arrested on domestic violence charges and things like that. We recently had a triple shooting that we still don't know very much about in Bernie, a small community, just outside of San Antonio. And I think that on top of all of that, though, the thing that has cut through a lot of the noise has been this King J. Davila case. It's something that's caught a lot of the readers' attention, something that, they've been really interested in and something that we're going to have to keep following in the weeks to come.
Yeah, and for me, at the end of the day, a baby is gone, and that's a really hard thing. And so in the coming weeks, I'm interested to see how the funeral will play out. That's something that I just started thinking about today. For so long, I think a lot of us knew that likely King J was dead, but we still had that glimmer of hope that maybe he could still be alive. So now reality is sinking in. So I'm interested to see what the funeral will be like, if that will be open to the public, and how the community will rally together to mourn the loss of baby King J.
And a big thank you to San Antonio Express News criminal justice enterprise reporter Emilie Eaton and breaking news reporter Ferris Sabawi for joining me for today's episode of the In-Depth Podcast, an interview program from expressnews.com. For the San Antonio Express News, I'm Chance Dorland.